Thank you, friend. Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. It's always fantastic to see you. I hope you're all doing fabulously. What a week this has been. You know, we're only a few days away from the official beginning of summer. How quickly the year is going by. Tempus fugit. And of course, the summer is marked by the summer solstice. Latin word for sun, standing still, because that's how it appears in the sky. And of course, it is the longest day of the year. But it's not just the solstice we're celebrating this week. No. It is Helen's 18th birthday, a very special day for a very special lady. And it's a very special year. Have a fantastic birthday. You are on the verge of a new life. You're about to begin university. And with it, you will take on and change the world. We can change the world, rearrange the world. It's dying to get better. And it is Father's Day, a day to call, to think of, to visit, to remember Father. Their lives changed more than you realized when you were born, as their sole purpose shifted to your well-being. We may not all be, but we all have fathers. Think of them this day. I think of mine, and I'm sure you all think of yours. And I know that's especially hard for those who just lost their fathers. It's hard for Satinder, whose father, Johinda Singh Sahota, passed away the other day. He was a wise and caring man. We called him Duru, and he never refused anyone who ever needed help. I know you will miss him. And of course, it's hard for Helen, whose father, Sheldon Shlomo HaKohen ben Moshe V'Freidel, died last week, and the toll that it has taken. The righteous will always be missed. They're often not known by name. They are known by their great deeds and the love that they shared, just like Father. And Stephanie, I am so sorry to hear about the loss of Shakespeare. The hole created in our hearts and souls by the loss of our special friends is truly disproportional. As the other Shakespeare said, out, brief candle, life is but a walking shadow. And the shadow of loss can touch any of us at any time. You will miss him and his spirit, but spirit never dies. Alav HaShalom, may he rest in peace. And friends, when there's a solstice, well, there is just something in the air. The energy is different on each of the 4 sacred days of the earth, the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes. And there's something in the air this week as we read about the Korah rebellion. See? Everywhere I hear the sound of marching, charging feet, boy. Because summer's here and the time is right for fighting in the street, boy. Now, there may be no place for street fighting, man, but there are plenty of fighting words. As this week we explore the Parsha of rebellion, Korah. Now, these are the stories, almost presented as the story, of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, not to be confused with Abraham, Martin, and John. Now, Korah was the son of Itzar, son of Kohath, son of Levi. Dathan and Abiram were the sons of Eliab and On, son of Peleth, son of Reuben. And friends, this tells you that we have the tribe of Levi and the tribe of Reuben represented. And that is important because of what they stand for. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Now, we are told that these 3, in effect, took up arms, and they rose before Moses and 250 men of the Israelites, community chieftains, persons called up to meeting, men of renown. And they assembled against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, you have too much. For all the community, they are all holy, and in their midst is the Lord. And why should you raise yourselves up over the Lord's assembly? Wow! What do we have here? Korah, son of Levi. Dathan and Abiram, sons of Reuben. The house of Levi, the church. The house of Reuben, the state. A rebellion against Moses. And friends, it's not just these men leading rabble, but leading leaders who were opposed to the concentration of power in 2 hands. The hands of Moses and Aaron. Korah, who we know so little about, other than he is Moses' cousin, becomes the archetype of the presumptuous rebel against just authority. And he's mentioned alongside Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Reuben. Now, Dathan was the Edward G. Robinson character in the Ten Commandments. But there he was always presented to us as evil. Here he is not. And here the conjoining of Levites and Reubenites is the first signal of an underlying problem. Had Moses become too dictatorial? No one in Jewish history had the power of this man, and systems are then put in place to ensure that no one ever did again. Not David, not anyone. Now Moses says the Lord will choose by each of these leaders lighting incense. And of course we're immediately reminded of what happened when Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's sons, did, and they lit incense. Well, theirs was unacceptable, so they were incinerated like a sacrifice. Now, how many others will be facing the same kind of fate? Moses deflects the Korah complaints against himself and completely pushes them onto Aaron. Now, Moses had already divided the leadership. He was in charge politically, and Aaron was in charge spiritually. Neatly packaged control of all parts of life by the two brothers. And while the Korah situation is being dealt with via the incense, Dathan and Abiram say to Moses, "You brought us up from a land flowing with milk and honey, see? To put us to death in the wilderness, see? That you should actually also lord it over us." Well, they didn't say see, but, that's my Edward G. Robinson impersonation. Egypt was the land of milk and honey. And they've not now gone to a land of milk and honey. What a turn of a phrase. So friends, what makes your land of milk and honey? Well, for some, it is the known, not the unknown. Right? And it goes back to this whole thing about fear. We then have this fantastic scene in Numbers 16:21. We got Moses and Aaron on one side, and you're presented with Korah, Dathan, and Abiram on the other side. Moses calling for a shootout at the OK Corral as the fire pans of incense are to be lit. And as if we've never heard it before, God says to Moses, "Divide yourself from this community, and I'll put an end to them all in an instant." Well, that's some ace up his sleeve that Moses has. History is written by the victor. It always has been. And this was written as a rebellion. Now, what would the American Revolution be called if Britain had prevailed? What would the Civil War be seen as if the secession flag were flying instead of the stars and stripes? Hey, think the time is right for a palace revolution? But where I live, the game to play is compromise solution. Friends, in war, no one wins. We must learn to find other ways of expressing dissatisfaction with leadership. Totalitarian control is never an answer, and neither is revolution. It should not come to that. You see, in this Torah Parsha, there are two separate rebellions taking place in two slightly different locations, and they have been fused as one in the writings. Korah versus Aaron's control over religion. And as he says, after all are holy. Dathan and Abiram versus Moses with his political control. The two rebellions have been combined. The Levite rebellion for priestly privilege and a Reubenite rebellion for political power. The Levite issue is obvious. The Levites are the chosen priestly class, but do not want all power concentrated simply in the family of Aaron. And the Reubenites, well, they were the firstborn of Jacob, and therefore they see themselves as the rightful inheritors of power, firstborn son. And the rebellion ends are completely different. Now, at the Korah fire and incense show, and a fire had gone out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men bringing forward the incense. Just like Nadab and Abihu, taken like the sacrifice. And in another location at a slightly other time, we see with Dathan, Moses suggests, well, if a new thing the Lord should create and the ground gapes open its mouth and swallows them, and all of theirs, and they go down alive to Sheol, you will know that these men have despised the Lord. And it happened. Just as he finished speaking all these words, the ground that was under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households and every human being that was Korah's and all the possessions. And they went down they and all that was theirs, alive to Sheol, and the earth covered over them, and they perished from the midst of the assembly. Boy, Moses sure called that one. So what happens? Well, the earth opens, it swallows Dathan's entire community, and closes again. Not an earthquake, but the earth itself open and close. Something completely supernatural. What a show. Now, of course, Sheol was the biblical place of darkness to which all the dead go. Now, in the Second Temple period, this changed a little. There's a separation, compartmentalization between the righteous and the wicked. And this ultimately led to the Greek concept of Hades with its combination home of the deceased. Now remember, this was after a year of sitting at the foot of the mountain of God. Then they got ready to move, and they sent chieftains to scout. They saw that the land that was promised to them, a land truly flowing with milk and honey. But their fear kept them from moving forward. Now, so we actually do not know when these twin rebellions were. The timetable's not known. Is this after years of wandering, or is this current after the end of that first year? And does it really matter, my friends? Isn't this about what the episode of the spies was about? Leadership. Who our leaders are, what our leaders are. Were Moses and Aaron not showing enough leadership? Or were they showing too much? As Bob Dylan sang in Most of the Time, I can follow the path, I can read the signs, stay right with it when the road unwinds. I don't cheat on myself, I don't run and hide from the feelings that are buried inside. What are the feelings? Now, friends, why do things happen? What triggers the events that take place in your life? Genesis was the descent of the spirit of man from perfection to ego-driven and therefore collapse. Exodus was about man's attempt to rise again, to free himself from the constraints which ego and fear create. Leviticus was a priestly consolidation of power thrown in to legitimize the priestly claim. And now Numbers, a census undone by getting what you ask for, but more importantly, about leadership. On the macro level, church and state. On the micro level, family, personal spirit. You see, the two different modes of destruction. The consuming fire engulfs the Levites while the Reubenites are swallowed up by the earth. It's the weaving together of the two rebellions, and it's intended to suggest that political and spiritual power are inseparable. And of course, the two separate stories, one against Aaron, one against Moses, fuse together the struggle for control, politically and spiritually, has been fused together ever since. The real thrust of the story is not considered justice, but spectacle admonition. Terror surges through the whole people as they witness the earth gaping, then closing, with the rebel Reubenites tumbling into the underworld, and the Levites who were challenging Aaron all being incinerated. God killed 14,700 of his people that day. And he resolved things via the magic blooming of Aaron's staff, which would from this point on determine leadership. We need to see to believe. And it will happen that the man whom I choose, his staff will flower. We need symbols. We love symbols. This becomes the talisman of future leadership. It ceases being anyone's staff and becomes the symbol which will live at the tent of meeting. Again, we see the seeds planted. This, my friend, points to the beginning of a plan for the transference of power. The Pharaoh's crook and flail. The shepherd's crook stood for kingship, and the flail for the fertility of the land. And it has been the symbols of power ever since. This whole story, like so many others in Numbers, marks out a borderline between the sacred and the profane, symbolically stressing that only the consecrated can cross into the zone of the sacred. And the Lord said to Moses, bring back Aaron's staff before the Ark of the Covenant as a safekeeping, as a sign for rebels, and let there be an end to their murmurings against me. They shall not die. This phrase of God's, and it's really an amazing phrase, as a sign for rebels, will be a major one in the future. This is a fantastic piece of foreboding. Yes, the world is sacred, my friends, and so is everything in it. Express your gratitude. Light a candle, make a wish. Celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free. Honor your freedom. Be well, be happy, be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light. Continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone and end to terror and hatred. Yes, the mechanism for the transfer of the mantle of leadership has now been established. The prop of leadership has been established. As Dave Mason saying, don't get too lost in all I say, though at the time I really felt that way. But that was then, now it's today. I can't get off, so I'm here to stay. Till someone comes along and takes my place with a different name. And yes, a different face. Feeling all right. Not feeling too good myself. This Parsha, my friends, marks a turning point. And remember, we are a community. We learn together. We celebrate each other. We love each other. Thank you all. Love you. See you all next time. Wishes do come true. Enjoy Father's Day. Enjoy the summer solstice. Enjoy your lives. Thank you all. Shabbat shalom. Take care. Bye.